Around 2 weeks ago, I got new glasses. People that wear glasses know how exciting that is. If you wear glasses, you know a regular maintenance is probably once a year, once every year and a half. You want to get new lenses. Not only because of a new prescription, maybe your eyes are slowly needing a higher prescription, but over time, your lenses get scratched. Your lenses get a little foggy. Your lenses, sometimes, they have cracks. Your lenses get some dirt that leaves some residue, and sometimes you just can't wipe it off. And as time goes by, you just get used to that crack. You get used to that scratch. You get used to the lack of clarity in your eyesight. And as time goes by, you get comfortable. And I got very comfortable with my lenses. And 2 weeks ago, when I put on that fresh pair, the clean, first time wearing the glasses, I was like, oh my gosh, I can see everything. This is amazing. For those that wear glasses, you understand the feeling. For those of you that don't wear glasses, a similar comparison would be one that just bothers my wife so much. When your windshield is dirty, and you don't wipe that windshield and you're just used to it and there's a bug there, you're already friends with that bug. You're talking to that bug that's been there for a few weeks. It's kind of like that, and then you clean it, you're like, wow, I can see everything. I can see again. I have vision. And it's so important to have clear vision. And as time goes by, we get comfortable and sometimes lost if we don't have a clear vision of what's right in front of us. Now today, at our church, it's a special Sunday because it's Vision Sunday. And in the same way, as time goes by and our glasses get some smudges, in the same way, we may forget what our vision is as a church. But what is Vision Sunday? Vision Sunday is where we come together and have we refresh our memory. We get some new lenses. We begin to see and remember why it is that we gather, why it is that we are a church, what our purpose is, and the direction for that year. Where we talk about who we are as a church, what we do, our vision and our mission, and the direction God has for us, typically with a word to focus on for that year. So if this is your first time today, I want to welcome you. And today is a very special day to be here for the very first time because you get to know who we are as a church and why we gather and the purpose. And if it's your 100th time, if you've been coming for years, it's great. It's like you're getting new lenses today. You get a refresh on why it is that we gather. So vision is so important. It tells us why we exist, what is our purpose, and what is our goal? The Bible talks about vision like this. In Proverbs 29:18, it says, where there is no vision, the people perish. Other translations, instead of saying the people perish, actually says the people run wild. You don't know where you're going if you don't know where you're going, right? It's pretty common sense. You don't know where you're going if you don't have vision. If you don't know the destination on a GPS, if you don't know that, the GPS can't guide you. So where there is no vision, the people run wild. And today we're going to talk about our vision as a church. But before that, what is a vision? Businesses have vision. You see companies, organizations, they have vision. And us as a church, we have vision. And I hope you, in your life, you have a vision. What is a vision? It's a goal. It's the end. It's the purpose. It's what you are trying to achieve as a person, as a company, or us as a church. And our vision is to serve our community by forming leaders with kingdom character and principles who influence all areas of the community. So if you ask, why do we gather as a church? Well, because we want to serve our community by forming leaders with kingdom character and principles who influence all the areas of the community. That is our goal. What does that mean? What does that vision statement mean? As a church, we want to form leaders. Everyone in here is and can be a leader. Now, I don't mean a ministry leader. Some people will become ministry leaders. Not everyone is meant to be a ministry leader, but you are meant to be a leader in your life, a leader in your job, a leader in your families, a leader in your friendships, a leader everywhere you go. And when we hear this word leader, when we hear leadership, sometimes we get a little intimidated, a little scared. It's like, well, what does it mean to be a leader? What is leadership? The simplest way I can tell you what leadership is influence. If you have influence, you're a leader. And all of us can have and do have influence. You have ever seen those people that don't necessarily have the title of a leader, but you're like, they're just a natural leader. They lead. It's because they have influence. They have influence possibly over you and people around them. So what do we say when we want to form leaders is we don't want to form people of influence who just sit passively and do nothing. No. We want to form people of influence who serve in our community, who serve and influence in every area of our community, whether that's in your space of work, in your home, but that's also including here at church. But it's everywhere you go. We want you to be a person of influence. And our goal is not to just form a person of influence, but a person of influence who shares kingdom character and principles. That is our vision. That is why we gather as a church. We want you to be a leader. We want you to be a person of influence everywhere you go. Kingdom character and principles is that final part that sets you apart from just any other person of influence. And we'll get to how it is that we do that as a church. Now, this is our vision, right? Which is the end. Many times places have a vision and a mission, and those get confused. A vision is the end. A mission is how we get to the end. I like having little tricks to remember. So vision, because in the alphabet, V is later than M for mission. It's like the end, right? So it's further down. And mission is the method of how you get to achieve your vision. And what is our mission as a church? It is really simple. To honor God and His Word above all else. Can you say that with me? To honor God and His Word above all else. That is how we are going to reach our goal, our vision of forming people, forming leaders. Now, what does it mean to honor God and His Word above all else? In everything we do, we want to honor God. We trust what He has spoken. We trust and submit to our lives to what He asks of us, to what we read in the Bible, to His commandments. His Word shapes our decisions, our character, and the way we treat others. And honor is proven through obedience and alignment, not just belief and knowing information, but it's actually living it out. So everything we do, we want to honor God and His Word above all else. Now, how do we form leaders of kingdom principle? Well, we have many things as a church that we do to teach these kingdom principles and character, starting with our Sunday gatherings. You guys are here today. We have an English service at 9 a.m. and we also have a Spanish service at 11 a.m. If you want to, we have a lot of people from our Spanish that like to come to our English to learn some English, and the other way around. We have English speakers that come to our Spanish that want to learn. So Sunday gatherings, we have youth ministry every single Sunday. At 11:30 they gather here every Sunday, and also outside of our church they have events. Just like we did this last Friday. We went to a conference, a worship night to be together as youth and young adults. We have kids ministry, all ages up to 12. Every Sunday. Over the summer, we have VBS. So we have spaces and places for children to come and learn about what these kingdom principles are. Every Saturday at 7 a.m., we have prayer service here in the chapel. We also have our discipleship, where this is really where we tackle and learn what these principles are, who we are, who God is, what the purpose is, where we dive into a discipleship, where we heal from past wounds, where we allow God to come and form us and shape us. And it's not just studying. It's not just studying the Word, but it's living it out. So we also have many spaces for you to serve. to be part of what we are doing here as a church. We have a welcome team, we have ushers, we have prayer, decoration ministry, security. We have a worship team if that is your gifting. We have a cleanup ministry. There's so many ministries that we can come and serve in because it's not just learning and reading, but it's also living it out. Actually, for me, how I learned a lot about kingdom principles and character was actually by serving. When I first started going to church, I didn't rush to all the classes, but I wanted to serve. And a regular weekday for me in high school was on Thursdays. I would be at church by 5 p.m. Right after high school, I would rush over. I would be there for my practices with guitar. We would have our youth service at 7. On Saturdays, we would gather at 12 for worship rehearsal from 12 to 4. 4 to 5 was lunch. 5 to 6 was the pre-prayer to the service. And then our youth service was 6 to 8. And then I would rush home because Sunday I would be back at church at 6 a.m. for 4 services, and we would serve in the worship team from 6 a.m. to like 4:30 p.m. Why do I say this? I'm not trying to say, hey, this is how much I served, you should serve too. But I learned so much when I was serving in the church. I still serve in the church, and I'm still part of whatever I can be to a different capacity. But we learn so much when we're around other leaders. When we are around other people of influence, we learn a lot. So you have opportunities to serve here too. Now, I want to go from where we are and who we are as a church to where we are going this year. And every year, we have a word for the year, a word that focuses our direction. It focuses what we do and how we do everything as a church. And last year was a year of alignment. We were using that word a lot. All of our messages were focusing on what it means to be aligned. And we read just right now, in the month of January, we read the book of Haggai and understood what happens when we have an aligned heart. And some of the wins that we had for this last year was our young adults ministry was finally established as a ministry, and it has been growing and thriving. We had a few couples that were not married that were married this last year. Our English service has been growing. Our Spanish service has been growing. We're now seeing the fruit of what it is to be aligned. And for us to know the trajectory of where we're going, sometimes it's important to see the history, the past, and see where we've come and where God has been moving us. 3 years ago, the word for the year was evangelism. Where we focused on evangelizing, where we focused on planting seeds, where we focused on inviting people to the church. And then 2 years ago was a year of transition. What happened this year of transition? Many people from this church either transitioned into positions of leadership, they transitioned in their personal lives, probably work, homes. But something that us as a church went through is a lead pastor transition, where the pastor of the church from here transitioned out. And my wife and I transitioned in as the lead pastors. Then last year, we had the year of alignment. And this year, church, this year is the year of harvest, is the word. Can you say that with me? Harvest. Say that with me one more time. Harvest. Now, what is harvest in the context of where we are going as a church? Here's a definition. Harvest is the visible result of lives aligned with God, bearing fruit, growing in maturity, and multiplying through faithful participation. Harvest is the visible result of lives aligned with God, bearing fruit, growing in maturity, and multiplying through faithful participation. And what my goal today is to break this definition down for us to understand our focus and our goal for this year. There's 3 words that stand out here in this definition of harvest. And these 3 words have a huge part or huge characteristics to define what harvest is. What are those 3 words? Fruit, growth, and multiplication. Can we put the next slide, please? Can you say that with me, church? Fruit, growth, multiplication. Let's say it one more time, just you guys. Fruit, multiplication. Now, what do these three words mean? When you think of a harvest, think of it in agriculture and with food. What is a harvest? It requires fruit, it requires growth, and it requires multiplication. So for the first word, fruit. What is fruit? It is a life planted and aligned with God. If you are planted and aligned with God, what happens, the result of that is you bear fruit. So what must be true in me? Psalm 1 says this perfectly in the first 3 verses of the book of Psalm. Psalm 1, 1 through 3. It says, "Oh, the joys of those who do not follow the advice of the wicked, or stand around with sinners, or join in with mockers. But they delight in the law of the Lord, meditating on it day and night. They are like trees planted along the riverbank, bearing fruit each season. Their leaves never wither, and they prosper in all they do." This sums up what it means for us to live out this harvest and be a fruitful people. Now, it begins by saying, "Oh, the joys of those who do not follow the advice of the wicked or stand around in the sinners." Now, this doesn't mean avoid sinners. This doesn't mean avoid people that don't go to church. That's not what this means. What this means is don't be influenced by them, right? We want to form you to be an influencer so you can influence the wicked, so you can influence the sinners and the mockers by not joining them and being influenced by them. And then in verse 2 it says, "But they delight in the law of the Lord, meditating on it day and night." What does this mean? That we read our word, that we spend time reading the Bible. I know that's crazy, right? We read the Bible. When we read the Bible, we learn about these kingdom principles, who God says we are, His promises to us, who Jesus is and what He did. And then when we do this, look at the result. It says in verse 3, "They are like trees planted along the riverbank, bearing fruit in each season." They are trees planted along the riverbank. A tree takes time to grow. A tree takes time to grow, and the fruit comes in its season. But notice this tree is planted right next to its source of life, the riverbank. And our prayer is that the fruit that we see, that we have already been seeing in lives growing, in the fruit that you will produce, is as we read our word, as we learn about these kingdom principles, as we are close to our source of life, which is God, we will all bear fruit in our life. So this is a word for all of us, that this is a fruit that is produced in your life as we go through what we do as a church. And we've already seen early fruit. We're seeing young adults ministry take root, and so many spaces being formed and established in our church for everyone. These are signs of life. These are early fruit that we are seeing in our church, but also in your personal life. And this is the early fruit, not just the entire harvest of what's coming. Now, that's fruit. Point 2, the second word is growth. Fruit and growth. Growth, I don't know if you know this, but when you're a believer, when you're a disciple of Christ, when you have accepted Christ into your life, fruit is expected. It's not optional. Fruit and growth in your life is expected and not optional. Jesus says it this way when he sees a people, he sees a large group of people, and he recognizes that they don't have a shepherd, that they don't have someone that is influencing them, that they don't have someone that is forming them. So he is talking to his disciples, and this is in John 15. I highly recommend, if you're taking notes, write down John 15, 1 through 17. Read those 17 verses. John 15, 1 through 17. I'm encouraged by how many people wrote that verse down. John 15, verses 1 through 17. Read that on your time. We're going to read 15:2 right now. This is where Jesus says, "I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener." This is the part that I want us to walk away with. "He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. Fruit is an expectation. And what we see here is Jesus is saying, look, I am the true vine and my Father is the gardener. And when you don't produce fruit, you get cut off. You get cut off this branch. But when you do produce fruit, this is something that also should be encouraging for us. It says that the gardener, God, prunes you for a purpose so that you can be even more fruitful. What is this pruning? This pruning is hardship. And I've had conversations with many of you, church, where, even including myself, we've had hardship these last few days, these last few weeks, these last few months. We've gone through hardship. But when we go through hardship, we can't think that it's just God has abandoned me. No, we got to be reminded that just like in a grapevine, just like in a harvest, there's pruning so that there could be more fruit. And in your life, God is producing more fruit in your life as he prunes you and forms you and shapes you. So fruit is something that is expected, it's not optional. And when we don't produce fruit, as we saw, we get cut from that vine. A tree that refuses to grow fruit is not neutral. They've actually chosen, and Jesus confronts that in that verse. So being a tree, we have been taken care of. We have been a seed that has grown, and we are being grown by our God. So fruit and growth is what we see so far in harvest. And our last word is multiplication. Fruit, growth, and multiplication. Multiplication is this harvest, but the harvest requires participation. See, the beauty of the word for the year is that it is a personal word for you in your life, that you will see fruit, you will see growth, and you'll see multiplication. But a word for the year is not only a personal thing, but it's something as a church that we come together to do. So there is an invite. Look at what Jesus says in Matthew 9:37. Right before he sends his disciples out, he says, then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Jesus recognizes that there are so many people that need to hear the word of God, that they need to be influenced and hear these good news, but he says, but the workers are few. There's so many people, but so few people that are willing to go out and work this harvest. See, harvest doesn't happen automatically. It requires participation. It's an invitation to step into what God is doing and what God is bringing. The harvest is ready. What we need are people to come and work the harvest. And this isn't anything new, even in Jesus' time. So not everyone has the same role, and that's the beauty of it. Every single one of you have a very special gifting. Every single one of you have a very special talent that you can use to serve the Lord. Jesus tells us that if we don't use our talent, that's going to get taken away and given to someone else. Every single one of us, every single one of you have a special, at least one special talent that you can use for the Lord. And God has entrusted us with the gift, with time, with influence, with opportunity. And the harvest moves forward only when people respond. So this year, we respond to this harvest. We respond and we receive it for our lives. We receive this growth and fruit in our lives, but we also receive a call to action. And this is where we talk about serving, not just in the church, but also outside of the church. What can you do to serve your neighbor? This is where we talk about giving as we build the church. This is where we invite people to the church. This is where we lead and become people of influence. And we step into responsibility and ownership of what is going on here at our church. See, harvest is not just something you and I celebrate, but it's something that you and I get to be a part of, and we get to work in the harvest. It's so beautiful that God allows us to be part of this mission that He has. And as we talk about multiplication, I was part of a gathering not too long ago where they shared a strategy for growth. And I've talked to so many people, and they have mentioned me, Pastor, it's been a prayer of mine that every seat in here is going to be filled. Praise God, I received that word. I received that word. I believe it, and I pray for that as well. Not just because we want people to be here, but because we want to form people of influence. How beautiful would it be to look around and there's no seats? And I came across, because sometimes we're like, okay, there has to be a church growth strategy. There has to be something meticulous, something strategic to be able to promote growth. And this was presented in such an easy way. I was like, wow, okay, if we actually do this, if we actually participate, we can actually grow. The strategy is called me plus one. Say that, me plus one. Notice when you get invited to places, very often it could be like you have a plus one, or hey, I'm taking my plus one. Who's your plus one? So me plus one, it's very simple. It's you plus one other person. Pretty easy, right? Me plus one. So I want to invite you, church, to be part of this me plus one. So what this means is for 2026, I'm going to show you how the math for this works. If next week, every single one of you bring one person, we just doubled in size. If in 2 weeks you bring one other person, we just tripled in size. Praise God for that rapid growth. You know, if we do it, but what I want us to do is to have a goal that in 2026, we bring 2 people. 2 people, at least. What is it that we do? We bring a person, but we also accompany them. You know, it's funny, so many people come and bring someone to church and they're like, here, Pastor. And I'm meeting them and I'm doing my best to try to meet people and get to know them. But like, if that's the strategy, let's be realistic. It's not gonna work. It's not gonna work just here. Let me hand you off to the church. Let me hand you off to the pastor. No, if you accompany them, when people feel that they belong, people will remain. I'm sure you've been in a space where you kind of don't feel like you belong, and the first thing you want to do is leave. And when people feel that they belong, they're like, this is family, this is home, I could be here. So the goal is to bring someone. The goal is to accompany them. Hey, here, let me take you to the chapel. There's some coffee. We have fruit, we have bread. Let's just hang out a little bit here at the church. Let me introduce you to some people. That's accompanying them. The discipling, we'll be in charge of that. We'll form the leaders of influence. We'll teach them kingdom principles. But help us with bringing people, with calling them, hey, are you going to come to church this next week? That's this me plus one strategy. And I'm breaking it down for you that between January and June, you bring one person. One person. May that be a goal that you bring, that you walk with, that you take to get some coffee, that you call them and remind them to come to church. And then July to December, we can bring one other person. And if we do this, church, that means we are working the harvest. We are bearing fruit. We are growing. We are multiplying. And even us as a church, we need to also multiply our growth strategy. We need to grow our leadership. We need to grow our spaces. So it's an all-around harvest that we all get to participate in. So what is the name of this strategy, church? Me plus one. Really simple. It's you plus another person. And I truly believe that if we put this into practice, we will grow. Not only in numbers, but you will begin to bear fruit. You will begin to grow in your life as you are walking with someone and teaching them the little that you know or the lot that you know. So as we step into this year of harvest, the invitation is clear. God has been planting. God has been cultivating. God has been growing fruit among us. But harvest is not only something you and I rejoice over, but harvest is something that you and I participate in. So this year, we're not called to stand at a distance and just observe at what the harvest is and what is going to be. But we are called to step into the field. I heard someone talk about this just not too long ago. I'm excited to see what the vision of the church is and see it be fulfilled. No. I'm excited to be part of the vision of the church. I'm excited to be invited into what is going on in our church, to bear fruit in our own lives, to allow God to grow us, and even through pruning, we would participate in the harvest. That means saying yes to serving. That means saying yes to being formed, yes to being sent, yes to be a person of influence. It says yes to using what God has gifted you with. It says yes to bringing another person. See, harvest is not passive. It requires response. So may this year be a year full of fruit in our life, growth, but also a call to this response. And we begin this vision with our very first response, which is Jesus inviting us into a sacred moment. Today, as the first Sunday of the month, we partake in communion. We are invited to participate in communion. Communion reminds us that the harvest we are invited to was only made possible by Jesus first giving himself for us. Otherwise, we wouldn't be seeing this. Communion recenters us. It reminds us that everything you and I do flows from what Christ has already done. So as we prepare our hearts for communion and as the ushers get ready to hand out the bread and the cup, I want to leave you just with a few questions to reflect. And the first question is, what fruit is God growing in me? What fruit is God growing in you? Where is God pruning you so you can grow? What is the hardship that's been going on in your life? Is it maybe something God wants to remove? And how is God inviting me to step into the harvest? See, you and I don't come to the table as perfect people, but we come as willing people and a heart surrendered to obey God. So right now, as you reflect, as the worship team leads us, and as the ushers hand out the bread and the cup, may you reflect on these questions. What fruit is God growing in me? Where is God pruning? And how can I be part of this harvest?